Hello, I live in the South, and I wanted to talk about how most people down here don't believe in human-caused climate change, or if they acknowledge anything is happening at all, it's not man-made. So I want to go into why we really are experiencing global warming due to carbon dioxide emissions. So how do we know that? Well, first off, it's actually something scientists have been aware would happen at some point for about 120 years. Does that shock you? Svante Arrhenius, a Nobel Prize-winning chemist, presented his findings on carbon as a greenhouse gas in the Philosophical magazine in 1896. It isn't the piece that got him his Nobel Prize, but it's gone down in history as one of the first predictions of climate change. And just to add, he was positing this when it was little more than scientific curiosity. There was no political agenda or anything here. Then, more recently, on June 24th, 1988, Dr. James E. Hansen of NASA told a congressional committee that he was 99% certain that the warming trend was not a natural variation, but was caused by a buildup of carbon dioxide and other artificial gases in the atmosphere. As I was doing some research for this video, I found this amusing article from the New York Times 1989 issue. So, the world has started to take very seriously the established threat to the life-protecting ozone layer from industrial chemicals. Many countries are now eager for President Bush to take the lead on another threat to the global climate, the feared warming of the Earth's atmosphere by pollutant gases like carbon dioxide. But despite Mr. Bush's ringing campaign pledges to do just that, his administration flounders in confusion and timidity. And it goes on a little further. James Hansen, a NASA climatologist, complains that the OMB toned down his conclusions about the severity of global warming before he presented them yesterday to a Senate committee headed by Albert Gore. And yes, it's that Al Gore, the one of an inconvenient truth. So it seems like our NASA climatologist here did manage to convince at least one person. I really like the conclusion of this article as well. The threat is clear enough. Even though experts disagree on how immediate it is, pollutant gases do indeed trap the sun's heat and might seriously warm the Earth's climate. It's far too soon to advocate the direct and drastic remedy, which is to stop burning coal, but it makes eminent sense to buy insurance against global warming with steps that are worth taking in their own right, from raising auto efficiency to protecting tropical forest. The threat cannot be addressed unless America assumes a major role. Far from leading the charge, the White House hasn't even joined it. And boy, oh boy, does that sound familiar. If we just started dealing with this way back in 1989, I don't think we'd even have a problem right now. So, we had NASA scientists 99% sure climate change was being caused by greenhouse gases 30 years ago. Where are we at now? A more recent study in the news by Reuters, links to everything in the description, covers a study by researchers in the United States, Scotland, and Canada. They showed evidence for global warming reached the 5 sigma level by 2005 in 2 of 3 satellite datasets, and by 2016 it was 5 sigma in the final dataset. So what's funny is that third set of data was being run right here in the Bible Belt, good old Alabama. So let me just say I'm not surprised we were the ones to take an extra 11 years to reach that same level of certainty. So then, what does 5 sigma mean? In simple terms, it's a big deal because it means there should only be a 1 in 3.5 million chance for these measurements to be a result of natural variations. So to put it another way, there's a 0.00006% chance that we are not experiencing man-made climate change, according to these studies. At this point, you might be wondering, if it's so clear that this is what's happening, why is no one in the government acknowledging this? And the answer to that is, well, they are. Just about everyone who doesn't need to be reelected is aware and using their limited resources to try and prepare. Here's the proof. So, number 1, the Environmental Protection Agency, of course, acknowledges climate change and has climate change data on their webpage. The Department of Defense acknowledged in a January 2019 report that more than 2/3 of the military's operationally critical installations are threatened by climate change. Further, in a 2014 report, the Pentagon had this to say: climate change poses immediate risks to national security and will have broad and costly impacts on the way the US military carries out its missions. I'll post links to my sources if you want to read all these various reports over. The Department of Agriculture acknowledges climate change is happening. They acknowledge that agriculture accounts for about 10% of our greenhouse gas emissions. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, otherwise known as NOAA, part of the Department of Commerce, has a wealth of climate change data and has even put together a toolbox for teachers to help teach about climate change. So here's what I'm getting at. Climate change used to be a bipartisan issue until the oil industry started lobbying and saying all the facts were not in yet. We have enough documents from ExxonMobil and statistics of political opinions that the finger can be pointed safely. Still, since this propaganda worked on voters as well, politicians are somewhat obligated to agree with and represent their voters. But the people who are running the different government departments and are hired or promoted based on merit, those guys practically all know about and are preparing for a climate crisis. Okay, last point for just, yes, climate change is real. And it's a big one. We already have official climate refugees in the United States from the United States. A Native American tribe living on an island in Louisiana has had their island flooded by rising ocean waters, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development has awarded the tribe $48 million to help relocate them. Alright, so we're at the end of part 1 of my planned climate change trilogy. But instead of like, comment, subscribe, I'm just going to leave the video running as I slowly scroll down this list of worldwide scientific organizations that hold the position that climate change has been caused by human action. Just slowly appreciate this 200-long list of academies and universities and societies from every country in the world, pretty much. Just appreciate it. Its length. Not its girth, just the length. From Canada to Croatia. From Germany to Kosovo. The Natural Science Foundation. Even Nicaragua. All the way down to Zimbabwe. Somewhere on here was some society that you probably respect. And if somehow you can deny almost every single one of these, you might have to accept that you're the problem. Thank you. Goodbye.